Hiroshi Nakamura decided to pursue his engineering aspirations by driving a taxi through the neon-lit streets of Tokyo on empty nights, hoping to hide his failures from his debt-ridden family. However, one gloomy night, a despondent passenger pointed me toward the path to the cursed temple near Mount Tokai, a path said to devour the living. My taxi was filled with an unseen dread as screams turned into cries, figures emerged from the mist, and whispers turned into howls. Was it fatigue, or had I accidentally become a ferryman for the distressed survivors of some forgotten tragedy? Each fare pulled me deeper into the fog, where doors slammed shut, ghostly squeals appeared on the windows, and old voices called my name. What if my next ride was my last, the courage to lift the veil between the living and the lost? I always wanted to escape the endless rice fields of my rural Hokkaido hometown. I had to complete my engineering degree in Sapporo because it was so cold, and my family's expectations were so high. But opportunities were as scarce as sunlight in those northern snowstorms. When my parents took out a loan to fund my education in 2015, the debt began piling up like snowdrifts. With just a suitcase in hand, I boarded the Shinkansen for Tokyo, my heart pounding with fear and excitement. When I arrived, I was crammed into a cramped capsule hotel in Shinjuku, my eyes glued to job listings on my phone. The city was supposed to be my salvation, but instead, it hit me with its never-ending chaos, tall buildings piercing the sky like towering mountains, crowds surging like waves, and a loneliness that gripped me more than any cold I felt at home. Every day, my parents called, their voices filled with both a faint despair and courage. Hiroshi, have you had any interviews yet? We depend on you to pay off those loans. I twisted the truth because I couldn't shake their fantasies. Yeah, some hopeful ones. There's something solid on the horizon. However, the rejections came quickly and forcefully. I lacked the experience required by tech companies, so even basic jobs eluded me. Panic set in. I needed cash, and quickly, even if it meant abandoning my degree for something less substantial. One stormy afternoon, with rain lashing the streets, I saw a flyer fluttering on a lamppost. Night shift taxi driver wanted. You don't need any previous experience. All you need is a valid license and the courage to navigate Tokyo's labyrinth at night. The pay wasn't bad, supplemented by tips from the city's night owls. I signed up immediately, donning a borrowed uniform from the Shibuya depot. My first shift started at midnight as I walked through the neon-lit neighborhoods. I presented it to my parents as an internship with on-site fieldwork and varying hours. Over the phone, they were incredibly relieved. They were unaware of my fabrications. The work was exhausting. Executives would give orders as if they owned everything. On the road, drunken salarymen would collapse in the back seat, and lost tourists would struggle with crumpled maps. Still, the routine became established. Hail transport, goodbye, over and over. In my spare time, my thoughts would wander to my shortcomings, reliving every missed opportunity. One night, sitting comfortably near the electric buzz of Akihabara, my phone rang with a message from home. We're so proud of you. When will the paychecks start coming? The guilt was like a knife, cutting. I had to endure it. A few weeks later, the dispatcher gave me a unique assignment, a long-distance pickup truck along the ancient forests surrounding Mount Tokai. Even though most of the fare passed through the city center, the compensation was 3 times more than I usually made. I pulled into a dark Asakusa lane and took it without hesitation. An elderly man wearing a tattered yukata approached, a wide-brimmed hat obscuring his face. "Take me to the old temple," he said hoarsely, his voice like stones scraping against dry leaves. No introductions, no conversation. As we descended from the city's glow, the expressway turned into a winding path surrounded by dense evergreen trees, and when I caught his gaze in the mirror, I nodded. His eyes shone strangely in the dashlights, but I mistook it for fatigue. A thick fog settled in, strangely thick. It was a pleasant evening. My GPS stopped working, and it became dark. "The reception isn't good here," I muttered, and I began to remember. The man remained silent, but suddenly, ice began to form in the cab, causing the temperature to plummet. Although the air was still, there were distant sounds like leaves being blown by the wind. Halfway across, the road became empty. No cars passed us. My beams illuminated the empty spaces with dim, blurry signs. "Is this the right way, sir?" I saw the empty space behind me in the reflection, so I asked. My heart began to pound. Turning back, I slammed on the brakes. He sat there, motionless, his eyes fixed forward. As I started the engine again, I whispered, "The light's moving." But the unease grew. I turned toward a decaying spot to catch my breath, then out into the night as the sounds grew into muffled screams that almost sounded alive. The forest was tall, branches twisting like accusing digits. I exhaled a puff of smoke, inhaling it. Then I saw them, footprints in the wet soil, stretching into the bushes, with no sign of return. My luggage hadn't moved. Putting it away, I got back inside. Now the man leaned toward me, whispering, "Go ahead. There are memories along the way." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, the motor roaring as we sped forward. Kilometers ahead, the path to the temple emerged, a pebbled branch from the paved road, entwined with vines. "Wait here," he ordered. The fare counter seemed to freeze. "Pay attention to the voices of the missing," he said, sitting down with his old, neat notes. "They need company." With that, he vanished into the mist. "Caution. Zone sealed due to mysterious events," an old sign read as I turned the car around and counted the money easily. Back on the main road, the fog thickened. A woman's voice, crying in an old dialect, cut through the white noise of my radio. No broadcast. Even though I turned it off, the sound lingered in my mind. Shadows flew around the edges, shadows resembling people flying across the asphalt. I once tried to yank the steering wheel to avoid something resembling a child in the median strip, but it vanished. My heart was pounding. I told myself, it's all in my head. Despite this, the taxi felt heavy, as if some unseen object had fallen on it. As I approached the glow of Tokyo, I felt relieved. I stopped at the base, my palms shaking as I recorded the trip. The coordinator looked at me. He squinted. "Hard run. Looks like you've encountered a ghost." I managed a smile. "I'm just tired." That evening, in my small apartment, I woke up. The ride, the rustling, the empty benches, all were nightmares that had haunted me the entire trip. I was desperately looking forward to my next shift. I delved into the Shrine Trail online. Old stories told of a hexed section where wanderers had disappeared centuries ago after a terrible coach accident. They claimed ghosts had persuaded the dead to join them. I laughed it off, yet my doubts grew. My family called again, asking, "How's this place treating you?" I lied easily. "Great, the money's coming in." Still, responsibilities were piling up, and resigning was out of the question. Another long-awaited booking appeared. The same itinerary, a new rider, a young blonde woman dressed in ivory. "To the sacred place," she said softly. I hesitated, but the reward appealed to me. Tempted. On the way, steam billowed again, and the murmuring grew louder. This time, she said, "Can you see them?" Ignored. When I peeked behind her, her smile revealed strangely sharp fangs. After turning the road, the taxi suddenly faltered. Puncture. No, something had scratched the underside. Stopping, I looked. Nothing was clear, but there were scratches on the chassis. Despite my growing fear, I continued. She sang an old cradle song, the one my Obesan had sung. How could she believe it? The murmurings turned into screams. At the end of the road, she got off without any wages and disappeared among the branches. As soon as my ticker rang, I ran. When I returned, I found the last, old currency-like blank pages. Hallucination, or something more serious. I had found work. Every night, calls would draw me to that artery. The riders were different, yet always headed toward the temple. There were so many strange things there, portals that opened automatically. They would be dead, the reflectors covered in palm prints, and a putrid stench. My lies to family were useless, and when I called, my voice faltered. "Everything's fine." One night, exhausted, I lightened my load with a beer from a fellow taxi driver. "That road, stay away from that area. Folklore says it's a gateway for restless wartime spirits. They show up, seeking transport, seeking solace." My face turned pale. Was I leading the ghosts around? Deciding to leave, I accepted one last booking to pay off part of a debt. The arrival, an old man, the same as the one from the beginning. As we approached the bush, the rustling sounds turned into words titles. "Please." My courage failed. "Who are you really?" I asked forcefully. He laughed. "You'll find out soon." The taxi cut through the fog, and reality shifted. The cab was completely shrouded in fog, and for a moment I felt as if I were driving through thick, pressurized, and never-ending water. My fingers turned bone white, and my hands were slipping on the steering wheel. His laughter echoed in my ears like distant thunder, while the old man in the back seat just sat there. "You'll find out sooner or later." These words hung in the air, heavier than the haze outside. Despite my desire to slam on the brakes and demand an explanation, my foot remained firmly on the accelerator. Pine trees lined the road as if they were guarding a secret, as if it was spiraling out of control. Was this the end of my lies? My thoughts raced. The end of the world. As we went deeper, the whispers I'd heard before turned into a cacophony, voices overlapping, begging, accusing. Some names I didn't recognize floated in the voices. Haruto. Please, don't leave us. It wasn't our fault. Crash. I looked in the mirror, and the old man's eyes met mine, shining with an inner light that wasn't human. They're calling you now, he said calmly, amidst the chaos. You've been carrying us for too long. It's time you understand. My stomach twisted, carrying them. Decades ago, a post-war bus crash I'd read about on a forum came flooding back to me. Refugees fleeing bombings, when their vehicle plunged off a cliff into these very forests. Dozens were lost, and their bodies were never found. The cab shook again, this time more violently, as if someone had grabbed the frame. Spirits were trapped, luring the living to join their fate. I changed my direction, narrowly missing a strange figure in the headlights, a woman in a torn kimono, her face forever twisted in pain. Though her scream pierced my head, it vanished as quickly as it had come. "Finish it," I yelled in a broken voice. The old man leaned forward, his breath cold on my neck. "You can't stop. The path chooses itself." My throat was choked with panic. I tried to find my phone, but there was no signal. The blank GPS screen mocked me. How far had we come? The city lights had vanished in the approaching darkness, and memories of home suddenly flooded back. My parents' tired faces, their debts to me. I had lied to them about my job, about everything, just to save time. Time was passing by like it was flying by. Another shadow appeared across the street, this time a child, laughing hysterically, and then dissolved into the mist. The cab's engine was revving, the lights flickering. "What's going on?" I asked forcefully. The old man sighed, as if explaining to a child. "You're on the threshold. Lost people understand your regret, your deception. They pull you toward them, just as they pulled me long ago, pulled him." When I turned, he was gone, but his voice remained and could be heard everywhere. I was the driver of that bus, made to wander, to inspire regret in others. The realization hit like a freight train. That old man, that young woman, and the other passengers weren't real. Or rather, they were survivors, echoes of the tragedy, and I was their guide, unknowingly, night after night. The claw marks, the handprints, the rotting smell, it all felt terrifying. The cab slowed against my will, the pedal unresponsive. Twigs scraped against the windows like nails on a chalkboard. Figures emerged from the fog, translucent figures crowding the road. Men in worn suits, women clutching bundles, children with hollow eyes. They surged forward, palms pressed against the glass, leaving icy marks. I honked, but it only let out a scream that mingled with their cries. "Let me go," I pleaded, tears blurring my vision. A soul, a gaunt man with a face, he came in through the door and sat beside me. "You to bear burdens, just like we did," he said softly, "debts unpaid, promises unbroken. Come with us, and find peace." His touch was like numbing ice, penetrating my arm and skin. I recoiled, slamming my foot down, but the engine only growled. The old man's voice came back. "The temple is their refuge. If you don't, you'll be taken." Ahead, the gravel path was visible, but now it led to a crumbling torii gate, overgrown with ivy, twisting like living vines. Despair grew within me. As the cab pulled forward, I grabbed the door handle and yanked it open. Spirits surged forth, their forms freezing, clutching at my clothes. I ran into the forest, branches lashing my face, roots pounding my feet. The fog followed, carrying its own pleas. "Wait, pay, my lungs burned, but I pressed on, guided by a faint glow. The city. Something else. No, I warmed my chest with a small amulet in my pocket that my mother had given me. For protection, he said, I grabbed hold of him, repeating parts of my childhood prayers. The spirits drew closer, their whispers turning into screams. One grabbed my leg and pulled me down. My mouth was sealed shut. When I fell, I was caked in mud, the cold ground dragging me down. I saw many visions, only the clear details of the crash screams, flames, sinking into oblivion. I saw myself in the driver's seat, not that old man. Was this my fate, to join them? No, I kicked and roared. The amulet began to flutter, a blast of heat drove that thing away. I climbed up, running blindly until the trees thinned. Hours were blurry or minutes. The fog suddenly cleared, and I stumbled onto a paved road, headlights blinding me. A passing truck honked and turned, the driver gestured at me and shouted something. I collapsed onto the roadside floor. The sky turned pink as dawn broke. Like the spirits, my taxi vanished. My mind was shattered and my body bruised as I tried to catch a ride back to Tokyo. The dispatcher smiled at the depot. Your car is in the return log a few hours ago. What happened? I made an excuse and immediately left work. I called my parents from my apartment. No more cheating. I didn't get the job. I'm coming back. His relief and disappointment were palpable. We'll figure this out together. My father said. I did more research, and I learned that the road to the temple was cursed and closed after people disappeared. People there told of a driver who had run away years ago, warning others. Was that me now? I returned to Hokkaido, finding an honest job and helping on the farm. The lessons continued, but the debt remained. Whispers and faint echoes still linger in the night air. With that amulet in hand, I stay away from the dark roads. The lonely seek companions, but I've paid enough, or did I? Sometimes, in the silence, I hear them calling my name,